الواحد وفيما بين الأجيال والمساواة بين الجنسين بشكل أكثر منهجية في جميع
especially in developing countries. The pandemic has highlighted the urgent need for enhanced international cooperation and solidarity to strengthen national efforts and policies. Even more than before, we need innovative solutions to address the social, economic, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. A vision for planetary sustainability for people, prosperity, and equity requires addressing our common environmental challenges: climate change, pollution, and nature loss. This must be done through transformative and accelerated action in 3 interlinked and mutually reinforcing strategic objectives: stabilizing the climate, living in harmony with nature, and achieving a pollution-free planet. Among the outcomes we must focus on to achieve sustainable development for all are the following. Firstly, we must significantly scale up global climate action to deliver on the adaptation and mitigation goals of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement. Secondly, we need to establish economically and socially sustainable pathways to halt and reverse biodiversity loss and enhance ecosystem integrity. Thirdly, enhancing the capacity to achieve sound management of chemicals and waste. This means improving waste management through sustainable consumption and production, including but not limited to circular economy and other sustainable economic models. We must stop polluting our air, water, soil, and the oceans. Fourthly, we must promote an effective global governance system informed by an open and inclusive environmental multilateralism, including through the United Nations Environmental Assembly. Fifthly, there must be adequate, predictable, and sustainable resource mobilization from all sources. We need to identify and support sustainable and innovative financing opportunities and mechanisms to unlock new capital for sustainable investment and to upscale sustainable business models. The development, dissemination, diffusion, and transfer of technology on mutually agreed terms and capacity building are important for unlocking practical, affordable, and innovative environmental solutions. Sixthly, we need an ambitious and realistic post-2020 global biodiversity framework. Finally, we must support development of measures which foster the mainstreaming of environmental sustainability across economic sectors and include better conservation and sustainable use of natural resources into economic and social development planning. The Environment Assembly have also identified initiatives that can leverage the opportunities for enhanced cooperation. Firstly, the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, 2021 to 2030. Secondly, policy proposals for delivering an environmentally sustainable and inclusive recovery from the Working Group on Recovering Better for Sustainability under the 2020 Financing for the Development in the Era of COVID-19 and Beyond initiative. Thirdly, the online platform for sustainable and resilient recovery from COVID-19, which showcase policies and actions taken by national governments toward a sustainable and resilient recovery from COVID-19. Fourthly, the Green Recovery Support Program under the Partnership for Action on Green Economy. And finally, the 10-year framework of programs on sustainable consumption and production and One Planet Network can be leveraged to support multilateral collaboration to scale up SDG 12, which is key to addressing the global environmental crisis and COVID-19 recovery. We are convinced that these measures will contribute to ensure the contribution of the environmental dimension of sustainable development to building a resilient and inclusive post-pandemic world and the delivery of the decade of action. To conclude, I would like to invite member states and stakeholders to participate at the highest level in the resumed 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly and in the special session to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of the UN Environment Programme in 2022. Thank you for the opportunity to share these messages with you today.
Fifth session of the United Nations Environment Assembly and Minister of Environment and Climate Change of Norway for his statement. I now invite the forum to resume the voluntary national reviews in which the forum will hear presentations by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the Marshall Islands, and Nicaragua. Before we begin with the presentations, I would like to appeal to the presenting countries to adhere to the agreed 15 minutes for the first-time presentations so as to allow sufficient time for all presenters as well as engagement with other states and participants. In order to assist the speakers in keeping time, a countdown clock is time to conclude their statements. I apologize in advance if I have to interrupt speakers, and I hope that with your cooperation, it will not come to that. Given the number of countries making VNR presentations at this year's HLPF, I believe that we all understand the need to be disciplined so as not to allow adequate time for presentations and interactions from the floor. At this stage, I also invite delegations who would wish to intervene in the interactive discussion following the presentations to inscribe through the speaker request form accessible through the link on the chat board. The forum will first hear a presentation of the voluntary national review by His Excellency Kim Song, permanent representative of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea to the United Nations. This will be followed by a live interactive dialogue.
Mr. President, on behalf of the government of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, I have the honor to make presentation on the voluntary national review of the DPRK for implementation of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, submitted the High-Level Political Forum 2021. In September 2015, the United Nations Summit on Sustainable Development adopted the 2030 Agenda, committing to build a new world by eradicating inequality and poverty at the global level and ensuring the human dignity and its potential wealth lives, not only for this generation, but also posterity. Government of DPRK expressed its full support to the 2030 Agenda, having recognized that the 2030 Agenda conforms our national development policy for building a powerful socialist state. In order to implement the 2030 Agenda, my government has set up National Task Force for Sustainable Development, chaired by Vice Premier and Chairman of the State Planning Commission, Vice chaired by Deputy Director General of the Central Bureau of Statistics, and comprised of senior officials from relevant ministries and organizations. Under the National Task Force, Technical Committee is organized with a member of Central Bureau of Statistics. National Task Force is a mandate to nationalize global sustainable development goals, targets, indicators, in conformity with our national Development Goals and coordinate all the activity for implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals across the country. Technical Committee is responsible for data collection and assessment, the progress by each goal by indicator through the National Statistical System and the surveys. On the basis of the line of the Building Powerful States and 2016-2020 5-year strategy and the new strategic line of the concentrating all efforts to economic construction set forth by Comrade Kim Jong-un, President of the State Affairs of DPRK, my government to finalize country-specific sustainable development goals and indicators by incorporating global SDG into the national development goals in accordance with the relevant national law and regulation. DPRK SDG have 17 goals, 95 targets, and 132 indicators. It is underlined in national SDG to consolidate the foundation of the self-supporting national economy by upholding the lines of prioritizing science and education and provide people with more wealth and cultural life through directing primary efforts to the energy, agriculture, water, sanitation, hygiene, and environment, as well as fully enforcing people-centered politics. The National Sustainable Development Goals are successor of the National Millennium Development Goals. They are elaborated on the basis of off-track MDG indicator, as well as the successes and the lessons learned during the implementation of the National Development Goals and Sector Plan. We selected 53% the global targets as national targets or integrated with national development goals. National SDG targets and indicators will be further updated and reinforced according to the National Development Plan, surveys, and evaluation of international practice. The SDG implementation is included in Cabinet agenda and the review on regular basis and connection with the implementation of the National Development Goals and Sector Plan. Follow-up action will be taken and implemented under the coordination of the National Task Force. Mr. President, the report of DPRK PNR on implementation of 2030 agenda has been prepared within participatory consultation mechanism, engaging all the ministries, agencies, and organizations. In February 2020, national seminar was supposed to be held for exchange of view on the implementation of 2030 agenda and preparing a draft of a PNR report. However, National Task Force has cancelled the national seminar due to the national emergency and epidemic measures to protect the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Instead of the national seminar, National Task Force, they organized virtual consultation on the 6 thematic areas of the social and demography, science and education, public health and water sanitation hygiene, economy and energy, environment and biodiversity, and disaster management. Through the virtual consultation, National Task Force will synthesize comprehensive view and comment on the draft and finalize it. Accordingly, we submit our first PNR report to current high-level political forum. PNR of DPRK described successes and the lessons learned during implementation of each goals, as well as the challenges and planned primary activities. It tracked the tendency by each goal based on the data that collected by national statistics offices and result of the survey that Central Bureau of the Statistics conducted in collaboration with the relevant ministry, organization, and UN agencies. The Northeast Asian Stakeholder Forum on Implementation 2030 Agenda and Technical Support of Women Experts and exchanged experience between countries in the regional workshop organized by SCAP were of great help in selecting our national SDG indicator and drafting the report. I would like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the Secretariat of SCAP for rendering valuable support in completing the first biennial report of DPRK. Mr. President, leaving no one behind is the motto of the 2030 agenda. DPRK is a people-centered socialist state. In my country, people-first principle is early lodestar in the state building in its activity. In my country, popular message are master of everything, and everything of the society served for benefit of popular message. In my country, state provide legal, institutional, practical guarantee to all the people to become the master and beneficiary of the sustainable development through the public supply, a distribution system covering all the households in the country, the social benefit, universal free medical care, 12-year universal compulsory free education, employment after education for all working age population, and social insurance and the security, etc. Substantial progress has been made in the last 5 years in further strengthening self-supporting the economy, and in particular, in ensuring the material cultural life of our people. Modern cultural and recreational centers were established for children and people in different parts of the country. The new streets were built, providing residents with tens of thousands modern dwelling houses free of charge. In addition, when the severe natural disaster caused by typhoon and flood struck the country in consecutive years since 2016, government, by mobilizing all the possible human and material resources to recovery, built more than 37,000 modern dwellings and distributed free of charge, repaired about 31,000 dwellings without any charge, thus stabilized the livelihood of affected people in short period. In the recent year, the damages caused by recurrent disastrous and abnormal climate have had a negative impact on the socio-economic development and improvement of the people's livelihood. Therefore, my government has addressed the disaster risk reduction as one of top priority to protect the lived health of our people, then provide the people with more stable livelihood, and consolidate achievement of the sustainable development goals. Disaster risk management system was put in place across the country in response to natural calamity 2020. Early warning and real-time information were provided on potential disasters through mass media. Thus, country's resilience capacity was further enhanced and risks were minimized. Government is taking active measures for disaster risk reduction by vigorously waging nationwide rehabilitation of infrastructure while enhancing its capacity to pre-position supplies and raising the public awareness. As mentioned in the report, the continued sanction and blockade on DPRK, recurrent natural disaster, world health crisis, are main obstacles in the efforts of DPRK to achieve the sustainable development of the country and improve the people's livelihood. These obstacles are causing off-track tendency in some indicators. Government is taking the action to accelerate the implementation of the national development goals through full adjustment and restructuring of internal forces based on assessment on experience and the lessons, and implementing 2016-2020 5-year strategy and overall impacts of the global pandemic on socio-economic sectors. Mr. President, process of preparation of this report, VNR has the offer important opportunity to adjust and decide on future direction and plan for implementation of the SDG mainly as follows. First, national SDG should be achieved through optimizing the use of its own resources, technology, internal force, under the ideal of the people are good, single-minded unity, and self-reliance, while intensifying the emergency anti-epidemic measures to cope with protracted worldwide health crisis for safety of the country and the people. The government will take every possible effort to achieve the sustainable development goals through rational use of natural resources and nationwide campaign by bringing the advantage of people-centered socialism into full play. Secondly, capacity to collect and analyze the statistical data should be improved, and national system of the unified statistics be strengthened. Monitoring and evaluation system for tracking progress toward SDG implementation will be strengthened, and the role of the national statistics be enhanced so as to decide right direction to achieve the goals. A standard international indicator and methodology will be further introduced. Third, it is essential to raise awareness on SDG and promote partnership with other countries and international organizations. The VNR on SDG will be disseminated to the ministries, agencies, people's government at all levels, institutions, and the social organization to inform them about where we are now and challenge and way forward, as well as to timely adjust and reinforce relevant plan. In addition, bilateral and multilateral cooperation will be enhanced to achieve national sustainable development goals. Last but not the least, I reaffirm the commitment government of DPRK to overcome all challenges and difficulties by concerted efforts of the people and to accelerate progress toward achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in close cooperation with the international community. I thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Permanent Representative of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea for the presentation. I have on my list for questions posed. The first speaker is from Cuba, Mr. Juan Miguel. You have the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for giving me the floor. First of all, allow me to congratulate the delegation of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea for the exceptional presentation of the VNR. I wanted to congratulate him on the progress made in implementing efforts towards the SDGs and the achievements in various areas. The most notable, they are very notable because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the uncertainty facing most countries. Allow me to ask you a quick question. What are the main obstacles being faced by the DPRK in furthering efforts towards sustainable development, including achieving economic advancement? Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Cuba. The second question is from the NGO major group, Ms. Hana Sang, Director of International Cooperation. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. For this year's VNR, the DPRK set strict conditions for its participation, agreeing to only answer one of the 4 questions that were raised by civil society. This has significantly limited the space for CSOs to voice their opinions at the VNR, which should be an inclusive process for all stakeholders. What efforts will the DPRK make to ensure inclusiveness and accountability to the SDGs that leaves no one behind in the future? And so we would like to pose the following questions. The DPRK has stated that all possible measures were taken to protect vulnerable groups. What concrete efforts have been made to include those who are born with physical and mental disabilities? Also, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the DPRK has imposed strict border closures, resulting in alarming consequences for food security, access to education, and economic activity across the country. The North Korean people's isolation has deepened with even stricter barriers to external information and trade across the border. What steps are being taken to resume cross-border economic activity to alleviate the scarcity of food and medicine and allow the freedom of movement for all its people? And despite the pledge to leave no one behind, the DPRK continues to sustain systemic discrimination at all levels of society. Instead of protecting vulnerable groups, the DPRK exploits them as a labor force in the name of social assignments for self-reliance, such as the mobilization of orphan children in mines and on collective farms, forced labor of political prisoners, and demanding of resources from women to advance the state's economic interests. Such discrimination defies the global goals and can also be seen in the unequal access and application of the justice system in the DPRK. How does the DPRK plan to address systemic discrimination within the country and provide equal opportunities for all? Thank you, Mr. President.
I would like to ask the distinguished permanent representative of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea if he would wish to answer the two questions from the two speakers we have had.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to thank the Cuba delegation. They asked the question on the primary obstacles to face my country in advancing the progress toward the sustainable development goals. As mentioned in the report, continue to sanction and blockade against my country and recurrent natural disaster and World Health crisis, the main obstacle in the DPRK to achieve the sustainable development goals and stabilize the people's livelihood. The DPRK is one of the countries in the region where the frequency and extreme climate change is high and exposed to negative impacts such as the reduction in agricultural production and destruction of the infrastructure. So disaster risk reduction is one of the top priorities for sustainable development. Therefore, my government is actively undertaking the afforestation, water conservation, and rehabilitation infrastructure resilience to natural disaster across the country, while enhancing crisis managing system in the nationwide. So the process of the PNR as they offer to my government the important opportunity to adjust and restructuring plan in coming years for the sustainable development goals. The one is the important conclusion we are again in the process of the preparation PNR is to bring the advantage of the people-centered socialism into the full play and optimize the use of its national resources and technology, internal force, under the ideals of the people of God, single-minded unity, and self-reliance, while maintaining national anti-epidemic measures to cope with the world health crisis for welfare of our people and safety of the country. So my government will take the strength, the cooperation and the collaboration with other countries and international organizations in the course of the implementation of the 2030 agenda. And I will answer the second question raised from the NGO with regard to what measures are taken to protect the person with disability and the other some of the issues. First of all, as I mentioned just before, in my country, the state provides legal, institutional, the practical guarantee to all people, including those with disability, to become the beneficiary of the sustainable development. Since 2018, DPRK has submitted a report to the Committee on the Right of Persons with Disability. My government is taking legislative procedure to amend the supplement the law on the protection of persons with disability in line with the requirements of the CRPD. Since 2018, my government took the substantial measure to protect right of persons with disability. For example, the construction of the General Rehabilitation Services Center for persons with disability with a total area 17,000 square meters is underway in Pyongyang. Also, the other construction for Economic Cultural Service Center and Vocational Service Center for Deaf and the Blind are underway also in Pyongyang City. And mobile phone application for disability diagnosis was newly developed and introduced so that all the family can identify and rehabilitate the children with disability at early stage. And then also the teacher training center for a person with disability was set up with purpose to train the person with disability as a teacher, and integrated vocational education was in progress for training of reserved. Also, in order to provide a person with a disability with the various cultural life, recreation, and the sports, our the Sports Association for Persons with Disability include the badminton, the shooting, the other events, in addition to the swimming and table tennis, etc., so as to allow large number of the persons with disability can take part in the sports competitions for persons with disability and amateur game they hold in spring, autumn season every year. Also, the Art Association of Persons with Disability is promoting the fine art and craft work production and violin the manufacturing, along with the instrument of the music, dance, and the song. So my government will take continuously all the possible efforts to protect the person with disability and ensuring their right to become the beneficiary of sustainable development goals and align with leaving no one behind. And the other the question with regard to some of the issues, I think it is have nothing to do with our DNR report. We will get some questions based on the false and fabricated material aimed at defaming the reputation of the DPRK. So I understand that the question is worth the answers. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the permanent representative of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea for his response. I believe we can now turn to the second VNR, which is Marshall Islands. We will next hear a presentation by His Excellency Kastan Nemra, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade of the Marshall Islands, to be followed by a live interactive dialogue. You have the floor, Mr. Prime Minister.